I guess I'm on. Change of plan. Welcome, everyone. You can see me at Welcome Regina. You can hear us all right now? Okay, good. And we'll hope for PA to join us momentarily. And Robin traveled up to Prince Albert, and she's our research facilitator, and she'll sort of MC once she gets in place. But welcome to this research evening. We thought it would be a good opportunity to talk about the type of research we do in nursing and the opportunities. It's often a good thing to sort of plan ahead, especially with busy terms and all that kind of thing. If you're thinking you might have some time or some interest in a research project, hooking up with someone that you're interested in working with, but also the timing. It works good for faculty often to schedule it in their terms when they have less teaching. So oftentimes it's good to plan ahead for getting involved in research. And we have quite a few faculty that are going to talk, each fairly informally, about 5 minutes to 10 about their research that they do. And then we'll have chance for some graduate students and any interaction. I'm Lorraine Holtlander. I'm interim graduate chair. It's probably better than the term acting graduate chair. Somebody at the grad studies said, oh, are you in the drama department or what? So I guess I'm really interim grad chair, just for this fall. And then Phil Woods will be resuming his duties as graduate chair and associate dean of research for the College of Nursing in January. But just to highlight, we have, within the College of Nursing, we have research clusters. And so faculty are organized into clusters of research groups, and some of these teams develop proposals together, work on projects, and kind of help each other depending what stage people are at. Our clusters are called Health Equity, Rural and Remote Health. That's a big area within Saskatchewan especially. Healthy Aging. And then we have a group that does child, youth, maternal health, health systems. And then we have another large interest in pedagogy, education, and the use of technology, because we do teach, as you can see, across sites and across the province. So, and just to mention our graduate programs that we have a Master of Nursing course-based, which means you can complete it in a calendar year if you're interested in working full-time on courses, and then there's a capstone publishable paper. We also have the thesis option for a Master of Nursing. We also offer the primary health care nurse practitioner program, as well as a PhD program. So I think at this point, we're still hoping for Prince Albert. Any news from up there? And what we'll do is maybe start with Shelley Peacock. You could come up and tell us a little bit about your research. Wow, Janet was supposed to go first, but
So good evening. I'm Shelley Peacock. I'm a fairly new faculty member at the College of Nursing. So I was sort of just asked to speak, share a little bit. I could make a PowerPoint presentation or something, which I did not because it was supposed to be informal. And so I really thought, okay, so these are up-and-coming people and they're interested in grad studies. And then I noticed we had some other description here. So anyway, I will deviate from what is described here because I think what's most important about graduate studies really is being exposed to research. When I was an undergraduate student, I can honestly remember sitting in class and thinking, I could never do this. Why would I do this? I just want to nurse at the bedside and take care of people. I know what an independent variable is. That's enough. And then I serendipitously came in touch with a woman who would eventually become my mentor. And we met in my final year, lucky for me, of nursing school. And there was just something about Dorothy. It's Dorothy Forbes. There's just something about her, and we shared an interest in older adults, specifically people with dementia. And I don't know why I said to her, the last meeting we had, because she was my faculty advisor and my clinical, I don't know why I said to her, you know, if you ever have a project, I think I'd help you. And I don't know what I was thinking. But she remembered that, and she hired me as her RA. So I had nursed for about 6 months at the bedside and knew that there were questions I had in my practice that I couldn't answer just in my practice. I had to search for answers a bit more. And so here was this opportunity with Dorothy. And I was so fortunate because she made research about a team, about her and I together. So even though she was far more brilliant and still is brilliant than me, she gave me such a supportive environment. And I can remember sort of pressing the enter button on my SPSS program because I was running some stats and some data that we had, and I was afraid to hit it because I thought, did I miss something? Did I not enter something right? And Dorothy's standing there, and she's like, okay. And she says, this is the fun part. And I'm like, what's fun about this? But she was right, because we got this data that told us, you know, people with dementia who access home care don't actually get very good care. And so we could work on that and work on that together. And she encouraged me to go on to graduate school, and research has just opened up so many doors for me. And I think it's really important in our jobs as supervisors or committee members to make sure that you have that same kind of safe, supportive environment, because Dorothy always thought of me as having answers to some of her questions as well. And we would challenge each other and look at things differently. And research is so fascinating and amazing. So I think of your role as students is to be curious, to challenge us, to ask us to look at things in different ways and to journey with you. And so research it can be so wonderful and provide you with answers that you wouldn't otherwise have gotten. And the important part being you share those answers with other people. So you can't just do your thesis or participate in research. You really do truly have to disseminate and share that with other people. So whenever I meet a graduate student, one of the first things I say to them is, you must publish, you must disseminate your work, you have to present at conferences, you have to come to 990 and present, because you're learning something new and awesome, and you have to share that with other people. So that's your role, I guess, as a student, is to be curious and ask questions and challenge us, and then to make sure that you share that knowledge, that new knowledge with other people. Your peers and other researchers and other nurses and so on. So I think I deviated, but I have learned to just go with what your gut says. So that's what I thought I would share with you. So my interest is with older adults, and I have some students here, so they know that I love dementia and family caregivers. And so I do some work with that. So with Lorraine, we are developing a writing intervention for bereaved caregivers of people with dementia. So we're kind of in the middle of that. And then I work with a psychologist, and we are initiating an age-friendly initiative for campus. So there might be some opportunities there, because we just have to get some things off the ground first, but and then we will apply for further funding in order to do that physically and more friendly.
Here. Are
you there, Chris Albert? Maybe the technology isn't so good. Are you there, Prince Albert?
Hi, we're here. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. We can see you. You may not be able to see us, but we'll make it work.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you, Shelley. We're Shelley Peacock. But we'll let Prince Albert take the lead just now, then, for a few minutes. So go ahead.
Hi, this is Robin Termeyer. I'm the research facilitator, and so I'm just going to introduce Janet McCabe, and she's an assistant professor at the Prince Albert campus, and she's going to spend a couple of minutes talking about her research program.
Hi, oh look, I'm there. Oh, that was creepy. Sorry, everyone. Hi, I'm Dr. Janet McCabe. I'm faculty here in Prince Albert at the Prince Albert Research Campus. Oh my goodness. Prince Albert campus of the College of Nursing. I teach in the second year and the third year of the program, and I've also just started to work with some graduate research students as well. And I'm talking about my program of research, right? Okay, I'm getting myself all together here. So my area of research is really around youth and young adults with intellectual disabilities and their engagement in health and health promotion. So that in the physical world looks like their engagement in physical activity. So I work with Special Olympics. Their engagement in health decision-making. So I'm on a few grants that look at the engagement of individuals with intellectual disabilities in their health decision. And what else do I do? And community engagement and community inclusion. So within the developmentally disabled population, we've seen a deinstitutionalization of individuals in the past 20 years, most likely due to the self-determination movement. And now these individuals are living in our community, whereas before they were pushed out of the community into institutions. And to look at whether or not we've actually done an effective job of working with these people within our communities and making them meaningful members of the community, or have we just changed their housing? That is, in a nutshell, my area of research. But I've also developed some really great research relationships with Special Olympics and community agencies across the province. So that's my life in a nutshell. I'm going to continue now to get the technology working for everyone.
Thanks, Janet. And Lorraine, can you just let me know who's already presented? I saw Shelley up there. Has anyone else gone as well?
No, just Shelley.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Shelley and Janet. I'm going to send us to Regina now for Marie Dietrich-Luhr. She's an assistant professor down there, and we're going to hear a little bit more about her area.
Okay, good evening. Can everyone see and hear me? Yay, great. Okay, I'm Dr. Marie Dietrich-Luhr. I teach at the Regina campus. This year I'm teaching fourth year. Almost exclusively. I have one graduate course, publishable paper after Christmas, so I'll meet some of the grad students then. I came to research a little later, I think, than Dr. McCabe and Dr. Peacock, who started, researching when they were young, keen nursing students or fresh out of school. In my case, it was a lot longer ago. I remember taking research, and we had to write a draft proposal as a student in the fourth year, and I couldn't think of a research question. It didn't seem very real to me. And then when I got into practice, it's so much different now, but I was practicing as a public health nurse in a rural area, and we would get a paper journal article that, we get the Canadian Journal of Public Health every couple months. It would circulate between the offices. So to even access research to use in practice was really difficult, whereas now, I think nursing students, you've got everything right on your fingertips. You can start, research is a whole lot more real nowadays than the way it was really difficult to get the latest research when I first started. And now you guys can be looking stuff up on the internet, you can have it on your PDAs, and so it's a different research world. So it's good because it's easier to get a little excited about research than it used to be. So I didn't really do a lot around research until I did a master's, and I got a research assistant job working with the College of Pharmacy and Nutrition. And that's when I really started to get excited about research. Like, I'd see research questions in my public health career, but it didn't seem like something I thought I could do. So as a research assistant, I was involved in a project where we interviewed inner city moms about food security. And so I hadn't designed the project, I was just helping out, but it was a wonderful way to learn about research. So I conducted the interviews and helped with the analysis and the write-up. And so for the first time, it made sense to me because we were asking them what it was like to have, a hard time finding food for your kids, but also what their opinions were about what might help. And so that's where I decided I wanted to do my research, was qualitative research, where you ask people that are affected by an issue or receiving a service what their thoughts are, what they think would work. So many programs are designed by people sitting in an office somewhere that have no idea what it's really like for the people receiving the service. So that got me excited about research. So I did a doctorate with community health and epidemiology at Saskatoon, but I did my research in Regina, again with parents, with children, living in disadvantage, asking them about what would help. And then when I had done my doctorate, I was sort of struggling, what kind of research do I want to do? So I went to the public health nursing supervisors who I used to work under. I went to one of their meetings and said, so I'm a nursing professor now, I'm supposed to do research. What should I research? But it was good because they came up with ideas of things, research that would help them, applied research. So it began with looking at a chart audit and how much contact do the nurses have with new moms and what are the new moms' issues. And I thought, well, while I'm in there, I've always been obsessed with trying to help our breastfeeding rates. Let's pull out the data on breastfeeding rates. And, so we did that. And in that case, I hired a student going into fourth year. I got just enough money for a research assistant. So I had an undergraduate student assist me on that project. And since then I find the research just kind of flows from that, So from that we found our breastfeeding rates, we got lots of moms to start, but they don't continue. They quit early, which is common across the country. But okay, well, how can we talk to moms about that? So the next project was we had a survey that the health nurses gave out to moms at Child Health Conference. So we had 191 moms filled in this survey, and they wrote about what they were feeding baby, but all kinds of opinions, a whole bunch of open-ended questions. So, and then from that it flowed into work that I'm involved with in Tanzania, and the moms, the Maasai and the remote rural areas, they all breastfeed, but they give a lot of other food as well. So thinking, well, we should, try to figure out how we can promote exclusive breastfeeding for 6 months, but I wonder why they do what they do. I wonder what they believe. I wonder what they're doing and what the rationale and the history is. So that led to last year's qualitative project there, just asking moms, what are you doing? What do you think? What would help? And so I just find research exciting. And if you had told me that when I was an undergraduate, I never probably would have believed you. But there's lots of questions. And so now I think if you get out and practice, just think, anytime you hear in your mind, you're thinking, I wonder if there's a better way. I wonder if this makes sense. I wonder what's been done on that. That's how it all begins. So I think it's an exciting time to think about research. There's always professors that could use some help. Sometimes, in my case right now, I don't have any funding for students to help me on what I'm currently doing, but that comes and goes. But it's worth, if you're interested in working as a researcher, to talk to professors and see what's there. There's always work we'd love to have you help us with for free. So if you just want to volunteer and you know about a project, there's always lit reviews and things that you can do. But anyway, that's just sort of where my research journey has been. So I'll turn it back to Saskatoon.
Thanks, Marie. Now we'll head back to the Saskatoon campus and hear from Dr. Tracy Riesling. She's assistant professor there, and she'll tell us a little bit more about her project.
Thanks so much. Hi, Prince Albert. Hi, Regina. My name's Tracy Riesling. The doctor part's still a bit of a shock, although I guess it's actually been a year. So I know, right? Does that seem possible? No, it doesn't, because still when people say that, I'm like, what? Pardon? Oh, right. Okay. So I am really at the beginning of my research career. I tend to work in informatics, except I find that when I tell students I work in informatics, they're like, yeah, but we want to work with patients? I'm like, okay, wait. So actually, if I was asked to describe my research, it's more about patient-centered technologies, right? Because there's no point in having any kind of informatics if it's not actually connected to and or helping patients, right? So when we talk about patient-centered technology, some of the projects we're working on now are about connectivity through social media. We actually just today had funding confirmed for a project. I jokingly said to Dr. Peacock, I need a research assistant immediately. No one's allowed to leave this room until I have that research assistant. But we do have funding just confirmed today, probably for an undergrad and for a graduate student. This project is going to be done in partnership with eHealth Saskatchewan. It's going to involve folks having access to their own electronic health record data. So imagine if you could actually just see your own labs and see your information and not have to wait and wade through and go see your doctor and all these different things. So it's going to be a really exciting project. But again, right, it's not about the electronic health record data. What the project is mainly about is how does having access to that kind of data empower people and engage people in their own health journey, right? So that's what we're about. So we use the technology because when you think about it, I just finished an article called RN 2025 about what we should be teaching all of you who will nurse a decade from now. And so what we did is, in the articles, we did two things. We went back a decade ago. Do you know there were no smartphones? In fact, 10 years ago, we were still 3 years away from smartphones. So now think about that for a second. Just think about that for a second. You don't even want me to tell you the difference in the internet penetration rates between 10 years ago, how many homes had access to internet compared to today, even in the most underdeveloped nation. It is crazy. So we did that look, and then you know what we did? We just hopped forward 10 years and tried to predict what it's going to look like for the RNs of 2025. It's a pretty crazy ride. So all of the research that we are doing, that I do, is about connecting people and building in the technology that is coming, right? Even if you hate technology or you don't, it doesn't matter because it's coming for you, and it's coming for all our patients, the very youngest to the very oldest, right? And so what we're doing is we're doing a bunch of different projects about getting people connected and really figuring out how to make technology second to patients. Okay, so we have a project running now. Like I said, that funding was just confirmed today, which puts us in the frantic RA hunt. So we'll be looking for a couple of research assistants now for that project. The data collection on that project actually is going to begin in January. So right now we need folks to help us finish off some literature review and some research design. And like I said, I've worked with undergrads, and I would like to work with some grad students as well. But, you know, it's really I think the most exciting thing about it is really working in partnership, right? You have great ideas. You may not know all the ins and outs about research methodology, but sometimes you get to the best methodological choices just by having a conversation about, I wonder what the best way to get at this information is. How should we collect this data? We tend to use technologies to collect our data as well, which is a bit interesting. We're contemplating some really interesting projects with teenagers coming up with Instagram and all kinds of other social media tools. So those are the kind of things we're up to. So yeah, so now that project is getting off the ground now. Probably should have got off the ground a couple weeks ago, but it is gonna go now and launch data collection in January. Then we've got another one that's coming online for the spring, and then another one coming online hopefully if the funding comes through for the fall. So yeah, if you're interested and that kind of research is of interest to you, please either see me after or get in contact. I'm sure that Robin or Jill can put any of you into contact with any of us. Yeah, and thanks for coming and having such a great interest in research. I still find it half terrifying, but I agree with everyone else who has spoken. When you do it, when I finally sorted out the data in my doctoral study, which was done with nurses in practice and communities of practice, and I did it with nurses who work in acute care. So as you may know, those of you who are finishing your undergrad or those of you who are in grad, when you graduate with a BSN, you're a generalist. That's what we call you, right? You're a generalist nurse. But what happens to all of you who go directly into places like labor and delivery and the emergency room and oncology? Those are the three areas I use for my doctoral research. And what happened is I had everyone tell me a lovely story about what it's like to be a brand new grad nurse, a generalist nurse, but every day be expected to perform in a specialist nurse role. And the story that they told was just, it's amazing. Not because I was the most brilliant doctoral student ever, because that is not the case, okay? But because the story that they told made it come alive. And when you hooked all of the stories together and painted the picture of the research that they shared, the stories that they shared, it was like, I likened it to like, you know, in The Wizard of Oz where you actually finally get to see behind the curtain. That's what it was like. When all of those voices came together and painted that picture of what it is like to move from being brand new to actually understanding your role as a specialized nurse, it was a pretty great story. So that's the power of research. But then Dr. Peacock's right, you got to share it and publish it. Otherwise, that story, you don't do any justice to that research if it just sits on a shelf somewhere. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Tracy. We will be moving back to Regina campus to talk to one of our newest faculty members, Dr. Helen Vandenberg. So Helen, I'll let you take it away.
Great, thanks. Can everybody hear me? Okay, thank you. Yeah, so my name is Dr. Helen Vandenberg, and I have maybe a bit of a different perspective because I just graduated in May, and I started working in July as an assistant professor with the college. So I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey, as it's a little more recent and on the brain, although I'm going to use some notes because even I have some hard time sometimes understanding how I got from here to there. So I started my undergrad and my master's degree really asking about how do we teach undergraduate students about culture and cultural care. And unlike a lot of some of the other professors who've already spoken, I was always sort of dissatisfied, at least with this specific question, with some of the things that I saw, especially in some of my public health rotations. Anyway, so for my master's, I decided to really look at this question, and I looked at first and fourth year students in this particular undergraduate nursing program, and this is back in 2007, so things have changed quite a bit even since then. And what I found was that we're really starting to be very good at teaching students to be aware of this idea of culture, to value diversity, to incorporate different beliefs and values into nursing care, but I argued we need to do a better job of talking to students about how cultural groups are constructed and for what purposes, what's the role of power. And this is, this was something that was new at the time, but a lot of people are now more familiar with this idea. And also how racialization of particular groups is related to these power relationships in our society and how this impacts both health and access to healthcare resources. So this really made me curious about how culture and race functioned in nursing and healthcare before the advent of things like multicultural and anti-racist theory. So before nurses were taught about things like cultural competence and cultural safety, how did they respond to these issues? Did they talk about culture and race? Did they do something different? Did they do something similar? Did they simply ignore this concept? So this made me curious about the experiences of groups also prior to these ideas of multiculturalism before World War II, during a time that's now viewed as much more overtly racist. I kind of was interested in this idea of how this idea of culture was constructed over time. Anyway, I didn't imagine, but I went to my PhD kind of thinking I would continue on and maybe look at what practicing nurses feel in regards to culture, but I actually became very interested in historical research. And I took a graduate course in nursing history with my supervisor at UBC, Dr. Gertrude Boschma. And during that course, I actually read that there had been this Oriental ward established in the Vancouver General Hospital in 1908. And further looking into that, sort of trying to understand how that came about, I learned that there were several Asian hospitals established on the West Coast. Through a series of unfortunate events, I'm not sure, I decided that I would examine the history of Japanese and Chinese hospital development in British Columbia at the turn of the 20th century, so the late 1800s, early 1900s, and I was really hoping that I might be able to answer some of those questions, like, how did healthcare providers at that time experience working with people they might have viewed as diverse, and things like that. So I didn't actually end up answering a lot of those questions, but what I did find is some really interesting insights about hospital development in Canada, and that what we know so far in hospital historiography is that it primarily focuses on the development of large general public hospitals, and this tends to story more about the development of scientific medicine and the professionalization of nursing and medicine. But what I found interesting was the huge diversity of smaller hospitals that were established, and this is long before Medicare, which is the 1960s when that was established. And I found that racism played a part of the establishment of these Chinese and Japanese hospitals, but what was really interesting was how connected these local communities were to the health resources that they established and utilized. So, for example, you can imagine there's a small town in BC, and these Japanese fishermen established this hospital, and they had to come up with this system of subscription fees in order to pay for that. So anything that happened in terms of them negotiating fishing prices with the canneries there really had an impact on the sustainability of this hospital. And I found this was really interesting to start thinking about how were hospitals funded at a time before government was really seen to be the place to go to obtain health resources. So the other interesting thing I found is that there's a multitude of different hospitals that have yet to be studied, and so that's what I'm embarking on at the moment, is I'm trying to understand more about the first history of hospital development in northwestern Canada from 1860 to 1960, and I'll look at BC, Saskatchewan, the Yukon, and Northwest Territories. And I have sort of two main things that I would like to do, and one is to really bring some more awareness about that diversity, but to really hone in on the special role that nurses have played in providing healthcare services in rural and remote areas. I think that's something unique that nursing has offered Canada from the time period that I'm looking at. So I do have projects going. I'm trying to get more projects going. So part of the reason I wanted to come tonight was to talk a little bit about what I'm doing and maybe make somebody excited who might come and talk to me if maybe someone has an interesting historical question. So yeah, so that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Helen. Now for the last faculty presentation of the night, we'll take it back to Saskatoon with Dr. Lorna Butler. She's the Dean of the College and a professor at the Saskatoon campus.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. I've been sort of hanging out in the evenings with Lorraine lately, so I'm getting to learn lots of what she's up to and what she's doing. So it's a pleasure to be here tonight as well. And most of the time, people think because you're the dean that you aren't connected to the students, that you aren't on their committees, and maybe you don't have any research. But that's actually not true. I'm on committees actually at the Regina site with 2 or 3 students there, and here, no one in the College of Nursing, but in the College of Medicine and in the Johnson Shoyama School of Public Policy, I'm on thesis committees there. So I am connected to students' research. But the other thing that I think you and I have in common is that we actually have the luxury of experiencing all these people who have presented to you, plus the other faculty in the college, to sit back and enjoy their brains. So you have a chance to ask all of them questions, to be with all of them, and to grab on to everything that they're talking about. And sometimes it's, for me, that's overwhelming to know all of the things that they're doing and what their experiences are. And my job is actually to get behind that and to bring the funding in that would allow the college to continue to be successful. So what's slightly different between what the others have presented is that they are talking about their research, and I actually really don't have any research that's my research, but it's the funding that will further the initiatives of the college. So I wanted to look at what is it that makes us distinct, not unique, because everybody thinks that they're unique, but what's distinctive for us. And in, I think, our province and our university, the opportunity in relation to rural, remote, and distributive education is what can make us distinctive across the country and in a global context. So we've been able to bring funding in, and there are 5 others within the faculty that I have an opportunity to work with to further those unique, I shouldn't say unique, those distinct areas. And Dr. Peacock made a comment earlier that really resonated with me, is when, and hopefully each of you as students will take away the message that she gave, is that there will be someone either in your career, hopefully your experience in the college, that will say something or do something that resonates with you and you want to emulate that, or they've given you a chance. And in my career, there was always in different areas in clinical practice, and then again in my studies, someone who gave me a chance when I probably wasn't really qualified to do it. But they were willing to mentor me, to push me along. And in my doctoral dissertation, the statistician, or we called him a methodologist, he gave me that chance, and he opened the door in terms of research for me, believing that I could actually pass statistics. And I actually couldn't. I failed it. But I kept going and kept going, and I did pass it in the end and actually graduated with 2 extra courses in statistics. But it did allow me to kind of understand the love of what numbers can tell you and what you can do with them. And so because of him, I have tried to then look at how can somebody else succeed or do something because of the opportunities that we've provided for them. So that's the funding that I bring in. That's what my research, if you want to call it, is all about. And so what we've been able to do with, some of the other faculty that are involved with this aren't here, but it's really essentially new faculty, and Dr. Mary Ellen Andrews, who snuck in here and it tells me she's not coming up here to speak, are part of those grants. But we're trying to position nursing also in places where nursing hasn't traditionally been. So some of that is with looking at mental health issues in terms of police services, in looking at what does absenteeism mean in industry. So in Saskatchewan, we have the highest rate of absenteeism in industry, private and public sector in the country. And we lose $16.6 billion a year in absenteeism industry across this country. So if we're leading in that, what's the problem? And it's more than occupational health and safety. So we're a mining province. We're trying really hard to get those engineers to stop thinking about rocks and whatever it is that's under the ground and think about the workers that come into those mines and what could nursing do and how could our distributive approach really make a difference in terms of the worker's life, what's happening in those mining camps. If we look south of the province in Weyburn, we have oil and gas that was starting there, different camps that are starting to develop. What are the social determinants of health that will start to play out when we see people who are in those kinds of communities? People who have already health issues that are further isolated into camps, how do they get health care? How can we make a difference in terms of that? So Dr. Peacock actually is one person who teaches, that's in this room, who teaches with distributive methodologies using technology into the north. And so what she's doing is opening the students and the graduates' eyes to accessibility should no longer be an issue in those communities. And if we're using that excuse, it's no longer an excuse. And we put the funding in place that actually allows that service delivery to follow education and nurses to be educated to actually make those changes. So when we talk about what difference can a community make because the College of Nursing was there, that's the kind of funding that I bring in. So it isn't necessarily my research, but it is what the College of Nursing is doing. And we've been very successful. We actually have had the Norwegian government give us 2 grants, so our faculty will work with them. And so we did do a presentation to 990 last year, and we asked for any student that would like to work with us, please give us a call. And I thought the phone would ring off the hook, but no one called. So I'll put that out there again. There are lots of opportunities, and just because I'm the dean doesn't mean that I don't work with students, doesn't mean that I won't help to position you in terms of funding. We have been also successful with undergrad students, and so I guess my call to you and the reason for being here tonight is that my motto is money is not an option. If you aren't doing something because you don't have the money, then come see me because it's not an excuse to not do. There's money out there. It's just up to us to find it. Thank you.
All right, pass it back to you, Robin.
All right, thank you, Lorna. With that, I'm going to open the floor to any graduate students who are interested in sharing their experiences and their journeys into research. And we don't have any in Prince Albert. I'm going to pass it to Saskatoon campus to see if there's anyone interested in there and coming up to tell their story.
Any of you been involved in research? Like to say something? I've got you on the camera here now too, so. Well, I don't know about that. You may have to go on this side of the room, Carmen. Or do you want to come to the front? I could switch the camera.
I'm going to be so distracted. Okay, so my name is Carmen Dell. My background is working in rural acute care in Meadow Lake and teaching the Sask Polytech licensed practical nursing program. I came into master's studies because I loved teaching and I wanted to secure more long-term employment in teaching, and so thought I needed a few more credentials behind my name. Also, I've always loved learning, so it's obviously a natural fit. I was asked today to speak to share my lived experience of being a graduate student. Yeah, drum roll, corny qualitative research joke. So what is going on right now is I didn't come in with a clear idea of what I wanted to do for my thesis. What I looked at instead is the research that was going on at the U of S. And I approached a couple different faculty members to say, hey, I think what you're doing is cool. This is my background. Do you think that we're a fit? And there were a few different options. So I guess for anybody out there who might be in the same position that's like, I think I might want to do graduate studies, but I don't have a clear topic yet, I would encourage you to consider that sort of route. What I'm doing right now in my very first semester is learning more about the history of nursing, the philosophical reasons why nurses should be involved in research in the first place, and learning how to do the research. So how a person sets up a qualitative program, what the different types of qualitative research are. Next semester I'll be doing quantitative and really learning a lot about stats too. The research area that I've decided to work in is I will be looking at the mental health courts in Saskatoon that just opened 2 years ago to see what the experiences of people going through those courts has been. So it's set up to divert people who have mental health issues or fetal alcohol spectrum disorder out of the justice system and get them into mental health treatment or community treatment programs to address their health issues and keep them out of the system. So I haven't gone very far with it, but I'm learning a lot more about it, and that's just where I'm at. So I'm available for anybody who's thinking about going into the program and just has some questions about what it's like being a student right now.
Perfect. Thanks, Carmen. Is there anyone else in Saskatoon that's interested in sharing their experience? Okay. How about at the Regina campus?
No.
Okay. Any graduate students that are on via WebEx? All right. So the next part of our night is just a Q&A session. So does anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask of the faculty or the current graduate students in terms of what the program's like or anything related to research in Saskatoon?
I was just wondering what kind of grades we need for graduate studies.
We're just going to be looking at your last 2 years of study. So, and we'll do, well, okay, so last 60 credit units, so usually 2 years, and 70%. We're also going to look at your stats class. We're going to look at your research class to see what your grades are in there. But it's not impossible. Like, I know students feel that graduate programming is for, you know, people with 95 average or higher. But it's for everybody, anyone who's interested in research. It's not impossible to get into the graduate program.
Okay. Oh, good. Others. I'll start there at this end of the house.
So thanks. Oh, I'm Carrie. Thanks for putting this together for us, Jill. The question I have is just what kind of a time commitment there is in like the research program. Is it something you have to do full time, or can you do it like part time throughout, like over 3 or 4 years? Like I guess then can you work like on the ward while you're doing research in this program?
Well, I think it's pretty flexible in terms of full time or part time. What we've really done with our master's program is have it all asynchronous online. Yeah, so you don't really need to be in a certain location at a certain time, knowing that most of our students are working as nurses and shift work and all that kind of thing. So yeah, we're pretty flexible, part-time or full-time. If you're going to get involved in research, and as you can see, we use lots of technology. We're comfortable with that. Even if you're not in the same locations, you know, you can hook together with Skype or WebEx and do work that way too. So anything else to say about that, Tracy?
Well, I was just thinking too, even if you're thinking about research assistant work, and I know it's really demanding. The regular program is demanding, certainly the grad program is demanding, and post-degree is difficult as well. But I think that, you know, if you really have a passion for it and you have an interest for it and you're not sure, better to come and talk to one of us and see, because what we might do is then, you know, if we have some tasks, we might split that up and we might be able to give you a smaller piece of something just so that you can still be involved. But then, you know, just be really reflect to yourself, you know, if this is going to be your job and your source of income, great. But if you're going to try and do school plus, you know, RA work plus another job plus, just think about it for yourself, because you'll want to do that too. And I know for myself, like, you know, my summer student this summer, like that was a really important part. Like when I have folks work with me as research assistants, like it's really critical. And I'm sure it's the same with everyone. Like you're really, really important to us and you're really, really important to our projects. So as long as we can have a really open dialogue about what kind of time you have, and then as long as we know that up front, then like I say, we can parcel out some smaller tasks or smaller things, and maybe we need a couple of folks part-time and those sorts of things. So there's lots of flexibility in the actual program itself, and I know at least for myself, I'd rather have a chance to work with people who are really passionate and excited about it, and even if you have some restrictions on your hours, we can probably work through a bit of that.
Thank you. And there's a question here. Oh, okay. All right, here's one.
So my name is Dustin DeVries. I was just wondering, what is a good first step that you would recommend for nursing for year 2 nurses? Like what's like the very first step that we can take when we're switching our perspective over to nursing in research?
So you're in year 2 right now, and you want to get involved in more research maybe in the summertime or something like that? Yeah, you know, who would know about the USTER? I've had summer students myself quite often come in and work full time. I think as Lorna says, she'll find the money if we if we don't. But often that's what we've done is sort of combine it. And I had Sarah Bocking was working with me this summer, and there were quite a few other. You had students too. So there's a USTER program, it's called, right? There's other programs through the university that fund summer students. So, you know, it is really great maybe to start talking to faculty now, because if faculty have blocks of time, they need to kind of plan ahead and what to keep you busy with over the summer. But Sarah and I, she's going into year 3 now. And then I had a master's of psychology student with me. But we worked all summer through Lorna Stone, but we were creating videos, actually. We did a lot of filming and editing and scripting of some videos that are the results of my research, the dissemination, videos for bereaved caregivers. So my area is end of life and especially the bereavement process after. So we made these videos to help. And so she was quite involved. We were out doing, you know, taking video shots and putting them together and then writing. And so it's good. She kind of was involved in a few different projects, but yeah, there's certainly opportunities, and especially if you're here, and it's a great experience to even start to get your name probably on some papers, that kind of thing. Eh? Yeah. Yeah, conferences.
Yeah, I did my undergrad with me last fall, I guess. I had an undergraduate student who's a post-degree student, and we went together to I busted her out of her one of her labs. That took a bit of work, but it worked out okay. So we busted her out of lab, and we flew to Victoria and presented on our research on social media at the Qualitative Health Research Conference, and it was just such a great experience, you know, and you guys have a lot to offer, and so just, you know, I mean, it's great. There are different tasks for, you know, graduate students and undergrads, but I mean, I think we're all learning, right? And so, you know, I'm learning, you're learning, and it's good to have opportunity to work together, and, you know, it's a really good experience, I think.
Well, it's really invaluable to us too, you know, just because you got the synergy of a team, and, you know, it's much more fun, especially if you're extroverted like a lot of nurses are. They like to work with people, and so it's great to have a lab or a group of people to work on projects. Good. Question here. Anyone else with a question? Go ahead, Robin, if you're...
Okay, before I pass it for Dinah, I just want to touch on the undergraduate student research applications that you were speaking about. And as was stated, I would highly recommend start talking with your faculty now. On our website, there's a research tab where you can see what areas of interest there are in the college and the faculty that are associated with them, and you can click on their biographies and find out a bit more information about the types of research they're doing. The applications for those grants are typically start intake in January, so right now is the perfect time to start reaching out to faculty if you're interested in research and want to know more about what they're doing, and working with them in the summer. And so now I'll pass it to Regina and see if there are any questions there.
No questions here.
Okay. Anyone on WebEx have any questions or insights they'd like to share? Okay. So if there are no other questions, we've already started talking about this a little bit, but I'd like to pass it back to the faculty to see if they have any additional insights and how they'd like to see students engage in research, or any tips or tricks for getting involved in the research world that we haven't touched on already.
Tips and tricks. Let's see. Go to the. I'm Mary Ellen Andrews. I'm the acting associate dean for the Northwestern campus, so that's code for Prince Albert, La Ronge, and Isle Cross. I'm also the director of the nurse practitioner program. One of the things I think that you know sort of what your interests are. Sometimes it's good to just go to the College of Nursing website and peruse the faculty profiles and find out, you know, who is it that's out there that's doing something that might not be in your area of interest, but close to what could be, because sometimes those brief descriptions that we put on the website captured something that maybe we wrote a few years back and that we've branched off in looking at different things now, so that never assume that those areas are like concrete little boxes. They're definitely not. They're always fluid, and people are always getting interested in things that might be happening with students in other colleges and gain different interests, so that that becomes a really good starting place. Find out who's doing what sort of research are they doing? Are they doing something qualitative? Are they doing something quantitative? Take a look at some of the things maybe that they've published in different areas, because they might have been part of grad students in other colleges and gained some interest, and maybe have some other contacts that maybe they can head you into some different directions. So, you know, that's a good place to start, and then start by making the appointment and having a visit, you know, and finding out what's going on with different people in the college. It's always good because there's all sorts of new things coming up all the time and innovative things, so that never think that, you know, there might only be one person inside the college to talk to. Always talk to a bunch of people and find out what's going on, because there is a lot going on. Or if you're in Saskatoon, or you're in PA, or you're in Regina, and that person's, you know, in a different location, that doesn't mean that you can't meet by Skype. You can't have a telephone call. So just put the email out there. People will respond, and they're always, people who do research in different areas are always interested in talking about their research. It's not like they're ever at a shortage for that, and they're more than willing to share it with you. So don't be afraid to reach out and send the email or send them a voicemail and say, do you have any time to talk to me about this? I'm really interested in it. And 9 times out of 10, if not 10 out of 10, they will be there and they'll return your call because they will want to share that with you.
Anybody else want to? Oh, okay. Oh, I got to be the walker. That's okay.
This is, I guess, more so directed to the people who are thinking about doing graduate studies, and maybe you're sitting there kind of hemming and hawing, but my advice to you would just be sort of take the plunge, because if you wait until you feel like you're completely ready, you probably will be waiting forever. I think I'm looking at Darcy because I'm going to drag her down with me. We're both first-year PhD students, and we have daily, hourly conversations about wondering if we're ready, and we're a half month into the program. So I promise you, when you get into it, you will figure it out. But a little secret is that none of us knew what we were doing on the first day. So if you think that you're maybe doing it, my advice would be just take the plunge, because none of us were ready either, but I think we're all glad that we did. Yeah, we're still here. Yes, we do. So that would be my advice, because maybe you look at the people in graduate studies and think, maybe I looked at the people in graduate studies as an undergrad and thought that they really knew everything and knew what they were doing, and we don't. We're still all figuring it out. So just take the plunge and you'll be glad you did.
There's somebody.
So I'm just wondering, like, did you take time off after your undergraduate, or did you go straight into your master's degree, and why?
I did. I took some time off and just sort of worked, and that I think it's important for entry-level nurses to get sort of working, and that's sort of where you figure out those research questions, and that's sort of where I experienced that level of dissatisfaction, I guess, with the way things were, and started asking why, and that's what pushed me back into graduate studies. And I was telling Darcy this story today, actually. I drag her down with me in everything I say, but I was fortunate to have a very close mentor when I was a nurse, and she just sort of reminded me, when I was hemming and hawing about going into grad studies, she just looked at me and reminded me that life doesn't stop when you go into graduate studies. I still worked. I was fortunate to be a TA. I traveled. I saw friends. I saw family. So it's not that you're putting your life on hold for years. You can still have a life and be a grad student.
And a very good life too, really, yes. There's a lot of flexibility being a student, right?
I was just going to build on kind of what Mary Ellen said as well. So I'm Darcy Sparks, and I'm in the PhD program with Laura. I think sometimes we think we have to, and I'm very passionate about the area that I work in and where I'm going to do my research, but coming into my master's program, I didn't take on any experiences with research, and that was one part in as I went into my master's, that I sort of like, I haven't done research. I don't know anything about it. I didn't take those opportunities, and then I got into practicing. But I did have the opportunity in my master's, when I did my practicum, to work with Noelle Rotinsky, who is on our faculty, to do I guess it was my practicum is what it was, and her area of research had nothing at all to do with where my passion is. But it got me in there, and I stretched myself, and even though it wasn't an area that I was coming into and knew that it was where all my work had been as an RN, it got me stretching myself, learning about research. And so even though I was scared going into it, because mentorship, you know, I teach for the College of Nursing, so I'm a believer, but I wouldn't say I was an expert, but it got me in there just stretching myself, learning what to do, writing a proposal, and those basic skills, you're going to take those all the way through. So I agree, don't think that you have to immediately, especially as an undergrad, think, oh my gosh, I have to know something, or I have to target it to an area that I think is going to be my dream area, because you'll take those skills with you. And so getting in there and stretching myself and getting those skills was probably one of the best things I could do, because I did have limited experience. And yeah, we all sit there and we all go, I don't remember anything from my undergrad research. I never thought that would be me. And then, you know, you get that knowledge. And today in our class for our PhD, we talked about the phrase knowledge is power, and we came up with, it was actually Laura, I'll put her on the spot, she came up with the knowledge, instead of saying knowledge is power, knowledge empowers. And so it is true, the more you start thinking and getting that knowledge, the more you start to go, yeah, I really can think that way. I think I can actually, I can pull it, I can do this. This is something that I can get on board with, and all of a sudden you're in a PhD program.
Thanks, Darcy.
Hi, my name's Megan. I'm in my first year of grad studies, and I went straight from the BSN straight into grad studies, and it's not that bad. Like, you have people that are there to support you. Everyone's, as soon as you, like, I freak out all the time, and I call my supervisor, and she's like, hey, no, calm down, it's okay, you can do this. So you have people you can rely on, and my biggest thing was I didn't think I would have the experience in that to talk about and think about for grad studies, but you do. You just find it from your clinical experience, and like I only have 3.5 months of work now, and I'm still finding stuff in there. So yeah, just do it.
Yeah, so I think you'll find every journey is unique, right? Some people are in clinical for a long time and then come into grad studies, and some don't. And I think that's the great beauty of it, is that there's many paths and meanders along the way. And yeah. Anybody else want to share or have a question? A few people are still thinking about it. Ellen, do you want to talk about your experience? All right, all the way through to PhD. Ellen, are you?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just saying, like, you know, people that come through without a lot of clinical experience, how that works, and what your journey was like.
Yeah, I think there was a couple of us in my PhD. There was about 7 of us, and you know, most people had maybe 4 or 5 years before they went into their PhD, but I went straight to my master's without any clinical. And there's no problem. I mean, I just think you're specializing in research, and I think it's going to allow nursing long term for some nurses to have really long and interesting research careers, which is something that we did as well. So I did end up practicing a bit during my PhD, so that was helpful. I mean, obviously, I think most people would argue that clinical experience is, you know, fundamental and very helpful to anything you do in research, but it's not necessarily, you know, contingent on that. Because you do get socialized as a nurse, and you do get to go into nursing practice as a student, so it's not like you're lacking any understanding of, you know, what nursing is and healthcare. What is it like to be on a ward, all that.
Marie, do you have any tips and tricks?
Pardon?
Do you have any tips and tricks to share or any insights that you'd like to pass on to anyone thinking about graduate studies?
Just that everybody does have a different journey, so mine was complete opposite to Helen's, right? I worked in practice for 20 years, and I started doing my master's. I was always taking classes, and in fact, I thought I was going to leave healthcare, so I did my master's in business administration and did some other courses in being a stockbroker and things, and then I decided, no, healthcare is where I want to stay, so I kind of, wasn't sure what I wanted to do with my career, and so it was kind of strange to come to academia quite late in life, but it's been a very good decision, and the research is a big piece of that, because you draw, when you've been in practice for a long time, you draw on that when you're doing your research. And for me, it's handy because when I do research with public health, I have all these people that are former colleagues, so they're always, they think it's kind of neat to participate in any research that I'm doing. So there is no one path into research. Either you can do it after you've been in practice for a long time, or you can jump straight in after school. It's whatever feels right. And I do think that people are using research all the way through their career, whether they're actually doing it themselves nowadays. But it's the opportunity. It's never too late. That's all I think.
Thanks. One other tip I'll add is if you are interested in working as a research assistant or connecting with any faculty, I'm also here as a resource. If you have a CCV or a resume or a CV that you're interested in passing along, I keep a file of those for faculty across the campuses. So please, if you have any questions, feel free to email me and chat about that as well. And I think that takes us to the end of our program. I think I'll pass it back to Saskatoon to see if there are any final thoughts.
That's okay if the camera's not on me. They can hear me. I think that's good enough. I just want to thank everyone for coming and thank Robin for her help in organizing and putting tonight together. I just wanted to remind everyone before everybody left that on November 2nd, we're going to have an information night on the graduate programs that we offer in the College of Nursing and how you can get in and apply to those programs. So I hope to see many of you there, and we can answer more questions that you might have about nurse practitioner program, course-based, the thesis, and the PhD program. And if there's no, there's a question. Okay, 1 second. No, that's okay.
Just wanted to ask if that program or if that evening is going to be recorded at all. I come off 3 nights, so I don't know if I'll make it or not.
My hope is to record it. That's my plan. So if everything goes as planned, I will record it and we'll post it on the website. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming. I'll pass it back to Robin to wrap it up.
All right. Again, I apologize that I was late getting to the party, but thank you everyone who came out and took part. Thank you to all the faculty members who attended and shared their experience and their tips for moving into research. Thank you for the graduate students who also took part and provided their experiences and just talked about how they moved through the program as well. And I think that's it for the night. Thank you to Lorraine for taking the reins at Saskatoon site and Marie at Regina.
All right, you're welcome. Good night.
Good night.